So how should we think about history or time? That's an interesting question, and I think there are two tensions. One, we all know that history is progressing, things are changing. There's something on Yahoo this week that it was as Friends turns 20 years old or something like that. Here's 10 moments that show that it's not as timeless as you think. So these are examples of how Friends, the show, isn't timeless. And one of them was Jennifer Aniston's character holding probably one of the first ever wireless phones. I'm not talking about cell phone, I'm talking about wireless, like from the handset to the phone unit, and it's a big brick. And you look at that and you're like, wow, that's old, right? So we all know that things are progressing, technology, everything else, but there is a cyclical nature to time. So for the Hebrews, time didn't go in a line like it did for the Greeks. It went in a circle based on seasons. So there's a season for everything, and there's a time to plant and a time to reap. It was on the 7-day cycle in terms of a week that the Sabbath rolls around every week, and there was festivals that would roll around kind of every year. And so there's this real sense in which for the Hebrew people, there was this cyclical nature of time, which I think is healthy because it's not so unbounded like a line is. And so I think they're both true, and they both speak to different aspects of life. So how do we deal with time? I think our culture is so much more in a linear mode that I think finding the rhythms of the Hebrew scriptures and prophets, I think is a real help. I'm reading a book right now called Sabbath as Resistance by Walter Brueggemann, and its subtitle is Saying No in a Hurried World, or Learning to Say No in a Hurried World, or something like that. But I just love that phrase, Sabbath as Resistance. So you have this Old Testament professor looking at the law and the prophets and saying there's something about the Sabbath that is the answer to how time ends up working if we forget the Sabbath, if we forget the cycles, if we forget the rhythms, if we forget how God tends to work in breaking the kind of the tyranny of the urgent that we find in this linear view of time, and once a week commands us to rest and to trust him that enough, there'll be enough to get everything done, to get the harvest in, to make sure that people are fed, your family's fed, and whatnot. So I really think that it's a challenge, but spiritual disciplines help. They slow us down. They help us reflect. I think some of the things we see in Scripture, like Sabbath and working on a bit more of a cyclical idea of time, doing things in season, taking your family and beginning to say, how do we treat the holiday season or spring or summer as traditional things in our family that we're looking forward to, that this is what summer's like in our family, this is what fall or winter is like in our family, so that we're creating patterns that our kids can hook to. Like, I know where we're going with this whole thing. I know what to look forward to. I know how to find my identity in some of that, right? So I think trying to recover some of those things, or creating some new patterns within a cyclical understanding of time, are incredibly helpful to dealing with it. So hopefully that helps. We can take a follow-up to that or go a new direction as well.